whatever we can to reduce those numbers. We don't have a requirement for sterilization under the current ordinance. Now, the way that it's worded in the ordinance, if you refer to that section, they're not responsible for sterilizing it at large. We have sterilization agreements that we use, and you can, the folks can sort that out with their veterinarians at a price that's determined through a conversation between the veterinarian and the owner. Adoptions of Park Dispatch 141, this is kind of a policy statement that we're making that we feel is important. There's been some legislation presented at the state legislature the past 2 sessions that would establish an animal cruelty database. We think that is absolutely appealing and justified. So what we're doing is to try to provide a local example to the legislature whenever they convene at the next session of someone that's already struck out on this path and how it might work. What we're essentially saying is that it is our policy to not adopt animals or to foster animals to a person that's been convicted of damage. And there's also, you can also appeal that determination in a subsection of that section of 6.1. Dangerous, aggressive, and public nuisance dogs. I think I've addressed this one. Yeah. We can go back to this, guys, if you want to explore this in greater detail. Dangerous dog. This is pretty consistent with what exists in the state code. I'll tell you that from the conference call today, one of the things that we're doing is going back to the health and safety code, looking at the dangerous dog definitions, our definitions as we use it locally, and then the definitions of aggressive or public nuisance to make sure that we're not, they're not in conflict. We don't think that they are, but we're double checking that at the urging, reasonable urging of one of our stakeholders this afternoon. Public, I think I've described the aggressive dog. Public nuisance dog, that's meant to address is a situation where it's really a nuisance owner, but there are some, we don't really have a lot of legal flexibility with being able to determine someone as a nuisance as opposed to an animal. But an easy example of this is there's an owner who has a fence that is in disrepair, and because of the fact that the fence is in disrepair, they refuse to fix it. That animal continues to run at large. Or there's someone who allows their animal to run at large, or they walk the animal and then leave deposits in a neighbor's yard. The public nuisance determination is there so that we can determine that animal is a public nuisance. Again, it's really a nuisance owner. But that determination will exist, and every day that the problems that led to that determination aren't addressed or allowed to continue, that's a separate offense. So what we're really trying to do is to internalize the costs of owning an animal to the people that are owning it and stop imposing those costs on the animal. Talked about this, dangerous dogs. Again, this is very, very similar to what exists currently in the code. And we covered the rest of the dogs. I'll just point this out that we've tried to have protection for folks that are participating in trap, neuter, and return programs, and to make sure that I think we still have some work to do, but to make sure that humane organizations, meaning folks that are foster and rescue partners with us, aren't unintentionally kind of captured or implicated by a lot of the other language that we have in here, because that's the last thing that we want to dissuade, is people working with us to get more animals out of our shop. And here's the conclusions, and I think I'll let them speak for themselves, and I'm probably right under time. Okay. So what we've tried to do is to take a pragmatic approach to our ordinance revisions. We've tried to make it easier for folks that are working with us on the outreach side to work with us and to not have to feel even an inkling of, some later management at Park 10 years down the line may decide that they don't like rescues anymore, and they can use some arcane sentence in the code to go after rescues and fosters. So we've tried to protect those interests. We've tried our best to institute a pragmatic regulatory scheme where those permits that we preserve still make sense. Get rid of the arbitrary stuff, go after root cause. And I just want to say that we've done our best to provide everyone with as much notice about the events and everything, but I've been involved in a lot of ordinance revision processes, and I think what we've received so far over the last 3 weeks in terms of stakeholder feedback is it's probably been one of the more helpful and constructive processes that we've gone through so much, and every day we kind of receive additional feedback that is leading to an improved product, and that's really due to every one of you all and folks that are watching at home and all that stuff. So I just want to say thank you. It's really great that you guys are engaged. So with that, we can take some questions, and perhaps I could start off with the non-commercial breeder, because I think a number of you are going to have questions about that.
You were saying that y'all had talked with some people before. What were they saying, or what were the ideas?
So let me tell you what our intent was with this. Honestly, we are frustrated. We're fed up seeing people that refuse to fix their animal, and they bring paint buckets and styrofoam coolers full of puppies and kittens to us on a regular basis. I can't stand it.
I agree.
And I mean, that imposes, and that's only the animals that are brought to us. And that is a fraction of the animals that exist on the streets, and it impact neighborhoods that are trying to lift themselves up. It's dangerous. It's a public safety issue. There's no doubt about it, and we're very exercised about it. So what we've tried to do with the non-commercial breeder, we've tried to say, commercial breeder, those regulations remain untouched from when they were installed in 2007. So it's perfectly fine, and now I'm talking about our intent. We wanted to preserve the ability of folks that wanted to breed for the purpose of, I don't know that you can make a living necessarily, but if you want to supplement your living by breeding, if you wanted to breed and then sell for the purposes of strengthening a breed or carrying out a lineage or what have you, we felt that would still be captured by the commercial breeder permit, which we were saying, okay. And then essentially what we're trying to do with the non-commercial is to say, okay, everybody else, just because you have an unsterilized pet and you think that it's great, it would be fantastic if you could get another one that's going to be just like it, which isn't going to happen. Then you want to breed it. Well, what happens is maybe you keep one dog, and maybe you've worked out with your friends or your family members to take the rest of the litter off your hands. Well, what happens when those litters are born? That doesn't happen. People get busy, they go on vacation, and then the paint buckets and the styrofoam coolers full of animals being presented to the park occurs. Trying to say with that non-commercial definition and a prohibition against non-commercial breeding, that is not okay, and it doesn't need to happen anymore in the city of Houston. If you want an animal, you can go get plenty of great animals at BARC, at CAP, at the Houston SPCA, at the Houston Humane Society, at the various rescue groups that we've got. That's what we were trying to do. Now, we know from a lot of feedback that we've received, and again, this is the topic that we've received the most feedback on. I think we probably received 50 different emails. I know the council offices have received them as well. That there are a lot of folks that are involved in kind of subcategories of commercial breeding, and there are important distinctions, like hobby breeding. One of the things that we discussed, to answer your question, one of the things that we discussed earlier with Carol and then with Tom was and this is really the type of feedback that we're looking for. It's okay, I mean, it's good feedback to tell us that you don't like something. But it's better feedback to say, I don't like something, here's my idea for how to improve it. So we were presented with a possible definition for a hobby breeder license. And I think while we need to go back and look at it, I think that's a step in the right direction. I think it's still probably too broad because it would allow protection for the types of activities that I was just describing. I think people could still claim protection under that. But I think everybody's on the same page with ideas that
ideas.
Yeah. So send us your ideas. We're talking about, just throwing this out there, we're talking about, give us your ideas about maybe the animals need to be registered with some organization. Maybe the people that are doing it need to belong to a local organization like the Houston Kennel Club
or national,
whatever.
worldwide.
Right. That's the type of feedback that's most helpful, even if the language that you all would like doesn't end up in the final product. If it's improved because of that, I mean, that's the type of helpful interaction we need. So, does that help? I think you've heard our intent. We've heard the feedback that we've been getting kind of loud and clear. We know that there are a lot of people that have concerns with the way that it's structured right now. So we've received some ideas already tonight. We're going to go back and look at that and try to improve what we have. The more ideas you can give us, the more improvement we can make. Yes.
The way things are written out, under a commercial breeder, someone in their home wouldn't qualify for a commercial license because of what they consider to be good conditions. Okay, they don't consider a home to be, they want them to have certain drainage and different things like that.
There's two separate homes. That's under the old
Right,
kennel.
okay.
That was the old
Right.
kennel.
Right. Whereas non-commercial breeders, those are the backyard breeders. But what's happening is with right now the way they are, you're getting rid of the people who breed for excellent animals, for healthy animals, for, you know, wonderful pets, socialized, hands-on, 1 or 2 litters a year at the most that they have. But the commercial breeders are the ones popping out the puppies and the kittens. You see more purebred dogs in the kennel than you do, or shelters than you do purebred cats. But that's because cats run loose more than dogs, I think. But you end up with, the only place a person can go get a purebred if they decide to get one is out of state or from a commercial breeder. There's no more, you can go over to the people's homes, see where the kitties were born, or the puppies were born, see the mother, the father, see the awards that they've won being in the show circuit to prove that they are an outstanding example of that breed.
Right.
You know, that's good, that's going by the wayside. Those people don't want to be hassled with it anymore because all these rules and stuff are hurting them. You're not getting rid of the problem. The problem is you gotta, I gotta, let's get it. That's where the problem starts. A responsible hobby
I'm not sure I
breeder.
understand the last part. But.
Huh?
We're not, some of us aren't sure what that means.
You got a poodle, I got a poodle. Let's
Oh,
make
yes,
poodles and
yeah.
make money.
You got an
That's what you
idea.
want to stop.
That's what you want to stop,
Yeah.
because there's no money to be made in it. A responsible breeder, several that I know, spay and neuter every single animal, adult or kitten or puppy, before it leaves their possessions, period. That's their hard and fast rule for themselves.
Right. So.
Those are the people that that you want to encourage, and they mentor people or discourage people who think, I want to get in to make all this money. You're like, yeah, I've been doing it for 20 years. You want how to make money doing it? Let me know,
Right.
because I haven't figured it out yet.
Right.
But you want those types of people to mentor people so that they do stop before they get a bunch of animals.
No. And I think this is, a lot of what we've been hearing is that I think people are reading, especially folks that are in the hockey group, for example, or that are involved in the Houston Kennel Club or various agility clubs, that type of thing. Commercial breeding, I think, implies to them, we weren't necessarily putting this meaning into the phrase. It was really more of a cut and dry, are you selling, or are you in the pipeline where animals may be sold at some point? But folks are seeing commercial breeding as puppy milling and that type of thing. That's not really what we were intending. That type of, to transmit that type of understanding of what we were talking about. So I understand what we've heard essentially is that there are important distinctions and words matter, right? Distinguishing between, like you just said, a person that's a hobby breeder doesn't see themselves as a commercial breeder because there's connotations to those words. Right? So, but from our perspective, it literally was a black and white type of thing. Are you selling, or are you in kind of the breeding value chain, right? And that was really it. So, but I think we received a lot of good feedback on that, so we're working on that. Ms. Brown.
I'm staying with the breeder part. There's a provision in here about everybody has to be spayed or neutered, paraphrasing.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, how will this be enforced and what is the fine for violation?
Okay, the enforcement is going to be if the dog is impounded.
I'm sorry,
If the dog is impounded, running at large.
dog or cat?
Okay, and you understand there already is the provision there can be discussions about whether we do it for animals that are licensed, people that are trying to be responsible. But the idea is if you're allowing your altered pet to run at large, you're basically contributing to the problem.
No, I need to get on to your, I mean, you know me, Chris, I'm on board with that. I'm asking the practicalities of, are we going to accomplish what we really want, other than writing it on a piece of paper and.
No, we can make the rule, but how do we enforce the rule?
Right.
How's the rule gonna be
Right,
enforced?
so, we're talking
Obviously,
about-
on the impound, the animal.
But that's only if you.
But that's only the dog is loose.
There's
Hold
gonna
on,
be a
guys,
scale.
I don't insist on much, but one of the things that I do insist on is everybody talking at once, and that's because I'm not smart enough to keep track of everything that everybody's saying at the same time. Okay, so one person at a time. So how do we enforce it? On impound, obviously, I mean, that's a condition for it. All right, do we accomplish what we're trying to do? Nothing that's written on the page is gonna get us to where we want to be. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is set up a framework that gives us the tools, even if we don't have the resources today to do everything. Although,
In this particular case, we do.
yeah,
But yeah, that's what I'm asking those, what, okay, the count, okay, so what is the fine or whatever for, it's a count, it's not spayed or neutered, assuming all this is passed, okay. What is it?
Oh, the fine
I just don't
for-
know, yeah.
well, I think that would be an offense for,
Yeah, that's
after it's been,
I just don't know.
it would be, I mean, it'd be a classic.
106.1, it's a violation of this chapter, which is
License.
citation.
Punishable by no more than 500.
Okay, that's what I'm asking, thank you.
And then, and the enforcement would also be, we're not going to spay and neuter the dog before it's returned, there's going to be a sterilization agreement, which is again already in the ordinances.
Okay, I'm gonna go here, then to the gentlewoman in the back, and then. Yes, ma'am.
I'm a little behind on this. Non-commercial breeder, this ordinance says that if you're a non-commercial breeder, if you let your dog, let your reproducer get that one. That's against the law, is the way I would go.
Right.
Yeah.
So what is the punishment for that? How do you, I agree it shouldn't happen, but so how do you stop it? I mean,
So they're. Yeah, it can-
That's what
it
I'm
can-
so that's the thing, I think, okay, I've got a, let's just say that your next door neighbor has a litter of puppies. So would you call animal control and say, my next door neighbor is,
Come in, pound.
You would have to leave the amount of those calls.
Yeah.
okay,
So it's
so
just not
the
working.
laws, so that's then a violation, and y'all can come out and impound that litter.
Well, no.
We can address the offense. We're not out to take everybody's dogs away from them. If you want them to have responsibility for them and do what we need to do to make them legal in the city, that's fine. But you will be in violation if you allow your dog, your altered dog. You can choose to have it, you can pay the extra fee that it costs to license it, but if you allow it to breed, then you've committed a violation. I will address it the same way you address it.
And I just want to add, I think this is an important distinction to make because it's something that I didn't really appreciate when I started working with Chris and Jody. I don't think a lot of people understand the limitations that the law puts on animal control officers about under what conditions we can impound them. We can't go impound, essentially, it needs to have been involved in an attack that has led to serious bodily injury. All right, but we can impound if it's running at large, right? But if it's on someone's property, litter of puppies, with the mama there, in the backyard, in the front yard, in the house, we can't impound that. We can address the violation that occurred via a citation, but we can't impound the animals.
Well, the reason I'm asking is that in our business, we deal with a lot of the animals that come in and bucket.
Yeah.
And every time we primarily place mutts. We encourage people very strongly to neuter their animal. We tell them, here's where you can go. But if I can also say to them, oh, and by the way, if you don't neuter this animal and you have an unwanted litter, it is conceivable you will now be in violation of the law, because that's another piece, that's another nudge to get people to be responsible.
Right. And
That's all I'm saying.
right. That's the type of thing that we're trying to accomplish. Admittedly, perhaps we don't have it right yet, but that's the type of thing that we're trying to accomplish. Furthermore, we've got people that report those types of things to us now. We've got Craigslist ads all over the place. There are myriad ways that we can find out where this activity is going on and try to address it. Perhaps the language isn't there yet to accurately kind of capture our intent and then what everyone else that is acting responsibly wants to do. So I promised that I would go into the back row, then I'm going to come here to the lady in the black and white shirt, then I'll go to Lisa, and I'll go to Tom. Okay? Ma'am, in the back, you had a question earlier?
Oh, excuse me, I just had a question because in what I got off your website, section 6.112, application for permit, it didn't have anything other than that you give your name, address, and phone number. I just wondered how you obtain a breeder's permit.
How you would do it?
Yes, I mean, it just doesn't say, it says all you need is a name, address, telephone number, description of the animals, and any other information deemed necessary by the director, which would be what?
Animal description, that type of thing. What we intend to do is we have a platform right now that we use to do pet licenses just for personal animals, and we're working with the vendor that provides that platform to us to deliver an application for the breeder, and then for the commercial pet service facility as well. So it's you can still do it in paper. You'll be able to do it in paper if you like, but what we intend to do is make it as streamlined and as painless as possible via the online system. It's really similar to, the process is really similar to what if you all have registered a microchip. It's similar to that, although our hope is to shorten it quite a bit. We haven't talked about this yet, but because of what going to an online-only process or an online-heavy process is that it allows us to reduce a lot of the administrative and overhead costs that were associated with it. So we're going to be able to reduce the fees that are associated with the licenses, the commercial, the old kennel license, now commercial pet service facility license, that's $200. Well, it's not going to be $200, it's going to be like $50. Breeder is going to be the same, that's going to come down because you've got breeder.
It was 50, now it's 200 now. Is it going back to 50?
Yeah.
Yay.
So,
Yay.
So I'll spare you the rigmarole, but if you, what we went through back in 2010, I think, winter of 2010, when the budget situation was kind of, the Great Recession was impacting our budget, we went through this exercise at City Hall where every permit, every license issued by the city, to the greatest degree possible, needed to try to achieve cost reduction. So that a number of different permits and license fees were adjusted if they hadn't been for a number of years.
Yeah,
we looked at
it's been
for a while.
50
So
for years.
we've since changed the kind of the underlying cost basis that goes into producing a permit, so we can reduce that. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to address 6137, the sterilization on first impoundment. As you may or may not know, show dogs are shown intact.
Right.
They must be intact because it's basically a judging of breeding stock.
Yes, ma'am.
So, under this new provision, if a meter reader leaves my gate open, and I get home from work, and I let my 2 City of Houston licensed male dogs, $50 a year, out, and they're picked up by Bark, a prospective young show dog and a national specialty winner are going to be castrated. There needs to be some.
I think you don't like that.
no. It should be the second offense,
No, it shouldn't be second offense, there should be an exclusion for that.
Exclusion for,
We're running into whether they're, leaving them
That's
outside.
not my fault they were let out.
We would be looking at adding a license provision in that, we discussed that.
Here's how it's ideal circumstances and how the dog got loose again with their scenario.
meter reader
Meter
cable.
reader let the
Okay,
gate
one at a
open,
time,
do it
yes,
all
one
the
at a
time. Yeah.
Yeah, meter reader leaves the gate open.
Or
So,
a kid goes in your backyard. and
one of
they
the-
leave
one of the
gate open.
things
You
that-
come home from work, let your dogs out, you don't have the gates open.
got it. Got it.
You're responsible.
Yeah, one of the things, if you look at the way that we administer, I think this is where you're going, right, with bite cases. One of the improvements that we didn't discuss here, but Right now, if one of y'all's dogs bites or scratches someone and it's reported to us, by law, that animal has to be quarantined for a period of 10 days, just for monitoring as to whether or not it's going to display symptoms of having rabies. So there are conditions under which you can quarantine that animal at home. And what we've used that before is try to encourage people to get their license. So you can, if you had your city license before, and then your animal bit or scratched someone, then you could do home quarantine as opposed to quarantining at a park or having to pay a private vet to do that. We've expanded that to try to remove the animals that are unnecessarily quarantined at large by saying that if your animal has a rabies vaccination, and perhaps you don't have a license yet, but so long as you get your license immediately, whenever on impound, then you can take advantage of the home quarantine. I think,
Didn't answer the question.
no, what I'm saying is that we have another example where you've already taken steps to demonstrate that you're a responsible owner, and clearly something must have happened, right? But you've taken those steps via licensing. I think that's something that we could look at where if you've got a license.
Yeah, there needs to be
provide other
something in
examples.
there.
That's already on the table.
Yes, there's a lot of show breeders that, I spay and neuter once they're done, but, you know, frankly, there's been a change of opinion on, you know, the show people and the veterinarians that intact animals are healthier and live longer. So I choose not to neuter my males.
Yeah,
My
it's not a
bitches
done
are
deal.
spayed, but, yeah, I'd be very.
So what would you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, if there was something where the dog was licensed with the city and microchipped already, which, you know,
I think
they
we've
would
got,
release the dog back to you as long as, you know.
So Christopher, are you proposing that there is that the premium licensing, is that what you're implying here?
well, not necessarily premium, but perhaps if someone has taken steps before it had been occurred, they've already proved via some prior action, licensing an animal, that type of thing, that they're responsible, and something happened, meter reader, maybe even husband.
That happens.
Left the game.
Because what I'm trying to get across, Christopher, is if we have somebody who's got this issue and the meter guy's letting their dog out, right?
Yeah.
Perhaps there is a premium involved with that because, and don't take this the wrong way, I mean, it is a little bit of your responsibility to make sure the dog doesn't get out. So if we had something that we could return the animal because there's a cost involved with us coming every time that dog gets loose, right?
Yeah.
So if we did something that offset that to a certain extent, that might be.
Well, I'd be okay
Well,
with that.
the
You
utility,
know, I
then the
just-
utility worker needs to pay for it because they're the one that let the dog out.
Well, I mean,
I was giving a scenario, my gates are.
ma'am, I'm not attacking, I'm just trying to figure something out. No, I mean, I don't
No, I
want
mean,
to.
that's essentially what we're looking at. We don't want to punish responsible pet owners, but part of being a responsible pet owner is taking steps to ensure that your pets are, first off, out of the weather, if it's hot, or if it's raining, things of that nature. And if they're kept in a secure environment where they don't have to worry about being out as much. But we don't see the reason to punish people just because there's a mistake, as long as you're doing everything else you need to do to go through there.
But that's not
If you're not, then even a show dog, if it's out, a female show dog especially, is going to attract all the males in the area to come and congregate. So there's another side to each one of these issues. We have to look at everybody rather than just the people that own the dog. We have to look at their neighbors. We have to look at the things that come as a result of breeding behavior as well.
I'm just throwing this out here after listening to a few of these things, but perhaps on licensing, you know, I would assume that show dog people and show cat people are going to license their pet, because I would assume that they have to have a rabies license to go to these functions. That perhaps maybe for an extra $10 or something, that there's a special section that says, you know, that this is a show dog, or that there's a special, special notation, whether it's on a microchip, a medical condition, show dog condition, you know, whatever. But you just pay a little extra for that, so that way we, you know, you guys, when it comes to your facility, or you guys go out in the field and scan, you know, all right, this is, you know, what's going on.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Hopefully the dog's wearing a city license patch.
Or a microchip. But, you know, those things fall off, but a microchip, you know, is in there.
But and we just have to reinforce, if you're not changing the cats at large section, cats will not be allowed to be at large because that's just so dangerous for the cats. And it creates a lot of other problems there too, so that part's going to
But here's my real, I was just following up on that, but what I'm trying to, when I'm listening to all this, you know, the people bringing in the buckets of puppies and kittens and things like that, that if there is a way, again, to educate them or to encourage them to bring in the mom or the dads of these, you know, of these litters so that they can be neutered at that time. So in other words, you get one litter mistake. Oops, my dog got pregnant through the fence, you know. Let's put a cork in it, and, you know, let's stop that from happening again by making it, okay, fine, you want to bring all those cats and or those kittens and puppies to bark, then it's mandatory that we spay and neuter all your other household animals kind of
They're
thing.
gonna have dumping.
But because what I'm afraid of is they're going to just start dumping. Instead of encouraging them to do the right thing, they're just going to let them loose.
We're
Which is going to make it harder for the ACOs to go out there.
That's one of those things that can really frustrate. It's a tough balance to strike between encouraging responsible ownership and avoiding dumping. Okay.
I just to comment, as you work to try to consider solutions for the issues brought up on some of the prize dogs being loose, and question and castration or being spayed. I guess part of the filter to test any solution against is be sure that we're not creating differences among economic classes, that the person without much income who has the mutt that the meter reader let out versus perhaps the person who doesn't necessarily have a lot of income or may have a lot, I don't know.
You mean the far more likely scenario?
Yeah.
Be careful we're not saying you're buying a privilege by paying for a license to have your dog or cat loose than the person who can't afford to pay a premium license.
I think
we gotta be
I think the idea of having a city license, you know, as available today, altered pet license, unaltered pet license, I think a person has already demonstrated by taking that step that they care enough about that animal and they care about being responsible, that type of thing, and we need to take that into account. All right, so, Jeff.
Chris, thanks. A couple things, and
Tom.
just as a reminder, I'm going to wear two hats here very carefully. So I'm going to wear the pet salon owner hat, and then I'm going to pull that off, and at the moment I'm going to have my neighborhood association hat on. You mentioned at the moment I've got the neighborhood association hat on. You mentioned under section 6-26, the at-large dog, you provided an anecdote about the need to change the language related to ownership and defining that. And you gave an anecdote about animal control officers responding, and there's a dog present, and it's been reported numerous times, and the party who, by all accounts, the neighbors say, this is the owner of the dog, and the owner says, it's just a stray, it's not mine. My neighbors would ask me, why was the dog just impounded? If they're refusing ownership or denying ownership, and the dog's loose and at large, why was it just impounded?
Well, it could be. But if we just, it's also the case that person may just do it again. Feed, and now they've got another dog. After we've impounded one, you're doing it again. So what it's about is saying, we may take away the dog, in all probability, we probably will. But it's not okay for you to do this, and here's a financial reminder that you cannot do this. This is unlawful.
If I can add that we have been to many places where we've impounded the dogs, and there's just another call next week because they have another neighborhood dog that they just brought in the house. So we're trying to make people responsible for the animals that they have rather than just take away everything that's running around that belongs to someone.
Impounding the animal doesn't solve the inherent. It's a symptom of it. So it takes a symptom of it, but it doesn't solve the inherent.
Has there been, just along that line, has there been some dialogue about increasing that sanction? Because if the penalty, and I think this is the question, if the penalty is $100 and 30 days later I'm in compliance, I'm going to have to pay the $100, it just seems to be, my specific question is there dialogue about increasing that sanction so there's a little more teeth in it?
I don't think there is dialogue, is the short answer. I think the dialogue isn't so much about increasing the sanction, because $100 for the people that are doing this is a lot of money. That's a significant penalty. It's whether or not that penalty remains at $100, whether or not the penalty ultimately gets applied, or whether or not it goes down to $15, $20. But yes, that dialogue is.
But to carry your premise respectfully, the premise was that you're visiting the same spot over and over and over and over again at the same
Repeat
place.
offender.
And it's the same offender, and I would think after 100, 200, 300, 500, $1,000 worth of fines, there would be some economic sanction there. I hear what you're saying, I've got a little bit of a disconnect there.
Well, I would just respond and say that that's, I think saying over and over and over and over again is a little bit of a modification of what was said. But in the case of repeat offenders, repeat citations, if it's $100 that's upheld, if that's what the folks actually pay, $100, that is significant to the people that are doing this. I'll agree that 100, 200, 300, 500 is even stronger. But the short answer is yes, that dialogue is important.
But, and my follow-up on that is that the premise of this is that you're changing the definition of owner. And it sounds like there's an enforcement mechanism that exists that, I'm not sure. On 6101, you made the comment about the ACOs observing activity. And this is frankly a real issue in our neighborhood, candidly, where, because we get these calls all the time, the dogs are large, I'm scared of the dog. Now, if the dog bit me, that's a different story, but we get a lot of these reports. And we do have the officers come out and maybe the dog's not loose at the moment. Is there any thought or I guess the frustration with our neighborhood is we can provide 3 or 4 neighbors with sworn affidavits and video, and surveillance video and these types of things. Is that not,
Evidence
is that not usable? Is that not?
Evidence?
We can't